We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Brawl and Sprawl MMA video. It is a beautiful Tuesday afternoon, and today I'm going to be going through the a little bit underwhelming, but no doubt will be entertaining UFC 330 card. I'll be breaking down every single fight on this one, and I might have some controversial opinions, so stay tuned to the main event. But the first fight we have to look at is my GOAT, Makhachev Oralbai, of course, the man who is plastered all over this channel. He is one of my favorite fighters, and this is just truly some disrespectful matchmaking from the UFC. I mean, he's 2 fights straight in the welterweight division against Hermanson and Curtis. Before that, at 165 against Makhachev. And besides the Rebecca loss, he has a win over Medic at welterweight and a win over Brenner at lightweight. So he's doing really, really well for himself right now in the UFC, and they decide to give him Jeremiah Wells, who is, I think, 39 years old, has multiple losses in the UFC, has never beaten a single ranked level opposition fighter in the UFC. It's just something that I don't really agree with. I think the matchmaking has been a little bit all over the place recently. But, that being said, it's pretty obvious what's going to happen. Makhachev Oralbai is going to win this by a submission. He's going to go out there, he's going to shoot a takedown, and he's probably going to get a Kimura or an arm triangle. The type of submission that just a pure fucking size mogger will do to the weaker opponent. Now let's move in to the next fight, which is another welterweight bout, being Neil Magny taking on Ramiz Brahimaj. Now, again, this is just like weird matchmaking. I sort of understand it because it's sort of like Brahimaj is the younger guy. We still kind of want to see what he can do in the sport. Obviously, he can't do much if you lose to fucking Temba Garimbo. But, you give him the shot against Magny. Maybe if he wins, he's got a little bit of a shot at making it towards the rankings. And I think a couple years ago, I would pick Magny, like, no doubt about it. But at this point, it's like, he's just so slow and so old. And yes, he's had performances where he's gone out there and upset the favorite, like he did against Jake Matthews, like he did against Mike Malott, stuff like that. But I think this one's a little bit different. I think the age and just the more explosive athlete is going to be too much for him. And also another thing is Magny has a pretty big problem of giving up his back in fights, and that's sort of where he loses in a lot of these fights, where he's doing all right in. I mean, Morales took his back, ground and pounded him. I can't remember who else did it, but I can vividly see in my mind Magny getting his back taken and losing. And that's something that Brahimaj does very well, especially off of takedowns. He chain wrestles and gets to the back, and I just think that that's going to be too much for him. So I have Brahimaj by a rear naked choke in this one. But don't get me wrong, man. I think Magny could seriously pose some problems from Brahimaj. I just don't know if he's still got it based off of the age. I really hope he does get the win, though, because I like Neil Magny. He's a fun fighter. Next fight we have on this card is probably the worst one. It is Tobias versus Fernando. Not even going to lie, don't even remember their first names. Both of these guys aren't that special, nothing really to write home about. Tobias is 0-1 in the UFC, lost to DR Nurgajai. Maybe not the worst loss, but, he still lost. And he's going against Fernando, who is coming off of the Dana White Contender Series, making his debut. I don't really know what to say. Most people are going with Fernando by KO, and I agree with them. I'm going to go Fernando by KO. There's not really much to break down in this one. It's just like more light heavyweight slop, so I don't really care. I understand, like, you want to have breakdowns and all this shit, but light heavyweight literally makes me want to fucking rake my eyes out anytime I have to watch one of these fights. So I'm gonna skip this, move on to the next one. The next one is Luque versus Gore. Now this is actually a fight that I'm looking forward to a little bit. I'm not positive if this is welterweight or middleweight. I assume it's middleweight. I think Luque has moved up for good now. But, man, something about this fight just screams like a banger to me. Both of these guys have really good front chokes. Gore, of course, is the guy who has 3 guillotines in the UFC. And Luque is known for having a beautiful Darce choke and Anaconda as well. So I think this could actually be a banger. It's just I do think that this fight is going to lean more towards Luque. He's got more power in the hands than Gore does. I don't think he has a better chin than Gore. Like, Gore could land a big shot on Luque and knock him out because his chin at this point is very, very suspect. But I think if you can sort of survive and go out there against Joel Alvarez and you can beat Kelvin Gastelum and you can look really good in the on the feet against a lot of those guys, I do think that sort of just points towards you being the better fighter. So I'm going to pick Luque by a TKO. I think he's probably going to catch Gore coming in with a right hand, and then he's going to follow up with some ground and pound. I think it's going to be some vintage silent assassin Luque performance, and I'm really looking forward to it. But the next fight we have on this card is Dante Johnson versus Eric Makhachev. A fight of just two brawlers, I guess. Dante Johnson, really, really big guy. He's a former heavyweight. I do think that's a little bit overblown, though. He was 209 pounds in that fight. That narrative kind of pisses me off. But he is a really big guy. He's got pretty good pace. He's got big KO power. He's younger. He's faster. He's more athletic than Makhachev. And Makhachev, on the other hand, is a very, very sloppy fighter. He's got a really aversion to big shots on the chin. He's not the Max Holloway of 185, I think. Yeah, this is 185? I think so. Like, he doesn't have this monster chin. He gets clipped a lot. He does the chicken dance. I feel like Johnson is just going to have the advantage in this one. Speed advantage, most definitely. So, I have Dante Johnson by a KO. He's also been training out with Extreme Couture. I think that's going to do wonders for him. Extreme Couture does a really good job of making the higher weight class fighters a lot better than, especially better than their fucking lighter weight class fighters. What they did to Dan Ige was fucking criminal. But, I just think he's going to be the better fighter. Next fight on this card is Jalen Turner versus Caio Fernandez. And, man, I'm really turned off by Caio Fernandez. I was really high on this guy after the Hardwick fight, but just the inactivity and then finally going back and watching his other fights and then seeing how Hardwick looked against Marwan Rahiki, I'm just not high on Caio Fernandez anymore. I'm not buying into the hype. His leg kicks are good. He's pretty technical on the feet. He does a good job of just staying clean. But I don't know. And that's not to say I think Jalen Turner is going to win this fight. In fact, I do not think Jalen Turner is going to win this fight. He's another fighter where I'm just like, I'm not impressed. I don't see anything that makes me want to pick him in a fight. He retires, has a terrible mental, image of himself. He's I don't know what it is. Comes back, fights 40-year-old Barbosa and KOs him. I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful to Barbosa. We'll get to him in a minute, but I don't think that is impressive at all. And, it's just something about this fight really puts me off. I don't care about it. I think at the end of the day, that's really what it is. I also don't think this is going to be entertaining. I think despite how both of these guys do have finishing potential, I think they're sort of going to cancel each other out in the feet. It's not going to be the greatest fight. So, Caio Fernandez, I have him by decision. Like I said, man, I just can't pick Jalen Turner after his last few performances. I really just can't do it. I could see Caio mixing up the grappling, making it interesting. Maybe they could get into sort of a dogfight, because Jalen Turner has been in dogfights before. It's just I don't think he has that mentality anymore. I really don't. But moving in to our next fight, which is Chidi Njokuani versus Joel Alvarez. Now, this is actually a fight that I do think is going to be pretty entertaining. Chidi Njokuani always comes out there to scrap no matter who he's going against. And Joel Alvarez has the capacity to be a very, very entertaining fighter. Of course, in his last two fights, he hasn't really shown it. At welterweight, he's sort of just, he seemed rough. He hasn't seemed the greatest. But I do think that if given the opportunity on the feet against a Muay Thai striker in Chidi Njokuani, we could maybe see some of that old vintage Joel Alvarez when he was on that big win streak at lightweight before, for some godforsaken reason, he decided to move up to a weight class where he wouldn't have any more advantages. I don't really know where the fucking strategy in that is. But that being said, I do think Joel Alvarez wins this fight, but I think it is going to be done by a decision. I think Chinny Njokuani's really, really tough, man. That fight against Carlos Leal, pretty impressive on durability, like on that optics, man. He took a lot of damage. It was a firefight. I don't think Joel Alvarez has the same pop that he did at 155 in the 170 division. It's just something about him, man. Again, it's a lot of these fighters like put me off. I just don't know what it is about this card. I feel like a lot of the matchups are just not the greatest. I think a lot of these fighters are just not the greatest, maybe on a little bit of a downtrend. But I do think this fight has the capacity to be entertaining, and I'm certainly rooting for it to be entertaining. But I think Joel Alvarez is just going to do enough on the feet to get this one done by a decision. But let's move in to the next fight. It is going to be the aforementioned Edson Barboza versus Esteban Ribovic. This is actually pitiful matchmaking from the UFC. There's something wrong with the UFC matchmakers. Like, seriously, something wrong with the UFC matchmakers. I cannot believe what they're doing to Edson Barboza in this matchup. Bro, Barboza has looked so bad in his last 3 fights. So bad. And I'm a huge Barboza fan. I am a huge Barboza fan. His fight versus Dan Hooker is one of my favorites, man. His fight versus Tony Ferguson, underrated classic. All right, Barboza is a fan favorite. I really love him. His war with Sadiq Youssef, excuse me. But man, they are setting him up for failure in this one. Ribovic is a freak on the feet, dude, and they're giving him a striker who is in his 40s, who has a bad chin, whose cardio hasn't looked the greatest. It's just, like, what are they doing, man? Barboza is a legend of the sport. They just did this last weekend to Darren Elkins, man. Like, I don't want to see the legends of this company go out on their back. I want to see them go out in a scrap against someone of their skill level, and this just isn't it. Barboza isn't even close to Ribovic skill level. He isn't even close to him rankings-wise as well. Like, I don't know if the UFC has some special fucking rankings that we don't know about. I don't know if the kid's on drugs or what, but Barboza is not as highly ranked as Ribovic. Like, there's no way in hell you can quantify that. Ribovic just fought Mateusz Gamrot. Barboza just fought Jalen Turner and Jakar Close. They're 2 different ballparks, so you can probably see where I'm heading with this. I have Esteban Ribovic by a KO, I think in the first round. I think in the first exchange, really. I'm really sad about this because I'm a huge Edson Barboza fan. If he can turn back the clock and get a upset, a decision, I don't care if it's the most boring fucking crafty man's Volkanovski against Diego Lopez too, where he just skates around on the outside and chews up the lead leg. I want to see Edson Barboza win, but I just know it's not going to happen. So Esteban Ribovic by KO. Now let's move in to another fight that I think is going to be pretty entertaining. It is Mansour Abdul Malik taking on Dustin Stoltzfus. And this isn't going to be entertaining because of their skill level. All right, you can definitely see by the records here that these guys aren't the greatest fighters in the world. Malik is coming off of a really tough loss to Belguri. I'm high on Belguri, so I don't really hold it against him that much. I think Yusri will be someone that will be talked about in the middleweight rankings for a couple years. I think he's going to be here for a while, but it just looked really bad on Malik. He did not have any tools for him. His grappling looked subpar. And besides that fight, Shockley, not UFC competition. Brundage, just like whatever the fuck that fight was. Klein, not UFC competition. Todorovic, not UFC competition. So Malik hasn't really proven himself against a high-level fighter yet, and he's going against Dustin Stoltzfus, who isn't a high-level fighter. He's higher level than the rest of these guys. He's wow. He's higher level than Tricoli and Klein and Todorovic, but I'm pretty sure Dustin Stoltzfus lost to Cody Brundage by KO. I'm almost positive that happened. So once you see that on someone's record, you can't pick them. Even though Malik hasn't looked the greatest, even though Malik is going against weak competition, if you're getting KO'd by Cody Brundage, I can't pick you. So I have Mansoor Abdul-Malik by a KO. I do think this is going to be a bounce back performance. I hope he comes back stronger. I don't like to see prospects lose once and then go on a downtrend. I want to see him recover from this loss, sort of have maybe a Felipe Lima versus Peyton Talbot-esque performance where he sort of reminds people who the fuck he is, all right? Taking what from who? Now let's move in to my favorite fight on the card, one that I think is fight of the night guaranteed. Charles Johnson versus Jose Ochoa. Man, I'm super excited for this fight. Ever since Jose Ochoa landed on my radar after that Kavanaugh fight, I was super high on this kid. He's got some of the fastest hands I have ever seen, dude. This guy has great combos as well. He slips and rips to the body. He puts his kicks into combos as well really effectively. He pushes people up against the fence and he just smothers them for round after round after round. And you can see his 2 losses in the UFC are nothing to scoff at. Almabayev, top 5. Kavanaugh, borderline top 5. So there's like no problem with him losing to those fighters. And he put on a better performance against both of those guys than Charles Johnson did. And I know you're saying, well, Charles Johnson beat Kavanaugh. Charles Johnson was 0-2'd. He was down 0-2. He needed a fluke KO at the end of that. But Ochoa was going back and forth like a gritty competitive fight with Kavanaugh. So I think this guy is the future. I think this guy is legit. I would love to see in maybe 3-4 more fights this guy fight a Joshua Van. That would be a dream matchup. I am so high on this kid. And he's going against Charles Johnson, a permanent staple in flyweight. God, yeah, you can tell something's wrong with me today. But yeah, but Charles Johnson, staple of the flyweight division. He's always in the fight. No matter how bad it looks for him, he always has the ability to fluke a KO. I mean, he's beaten 2 top 10 level fighters, or top 7 level fighters in Kavanaugh, and the champion, Joshua Van. That I still cannot believe he did that. One of the worst days I've ever had as a UFC fan, by the way. I told all of my friends to bet on Joshua Van, and that happened. But he does have the ability to KO Jose Ochoa. It's just, I think he's over the hill, man. I think Charles Johnson is past his prime. If this was a few years ago, I would say, man, he's gonna win this by a fluke KO. But I just don't think he has it in him anymore, man. After that Silva fight, after that Perez fight, after that Almabayev fight, he's looked really gun-shy. He's looked really beatable. I just think this is a perfect time for Jose Ochoa to have a showcase performance in the featured fight of a really weak pay-per-view. I think he's going to be the show stealer. I think people are going to come away from this card talking about Jose Ochoa. But now let's move in to the co-main event of the evening, being... Something's fucking clearly wrong with me today, and you're probably going to think there's something more wrong with me when we get into these next 2 fights. But let's get into the co-main, which is Mackenzie Dern versus Jillian Robertson. And I'm not going to mince words here, man. Jillian Robertson gets this one done, dude. I don't know what it is. I don't know if there's something in the air. I don't know if the kid's on drugs or what, but I have to pick her. I don't know why. My brain cannot comprehend Mackenzie Dern being a champion in the UFC. I don't know if this pick is a case of Robertson being good or Mackenzie Dern just being bad. Mackenzie Dern is ass. Oh, I think a lot of people do know that Mackenzie Dern is ass. I mean, that's why she's so popular. But I just think I just think Robertson is a better fighter. I think she's I think she's more violent. I think that's what you need in WMMA. You need to be the person that goes out there and looks to inflict damage. And I just think it's going to be a weird fight. I don't think anyone's going to pull ahead. I don't think this is going to be the most entertaining fucking back and forth women's fight of all time. Again, I could be wrong. Mackenzie Dern could fluke a fucking sub off of her back. But I just believe. I believe Jillian Robertson's going to get this one done. And it's more of a belief that Mackenzie Dern is shit. I cannot believe that she is a UFC champion in the year of our Lord 2026. It's so just surreal to me that someone that bad at MMA has reached the peak of the sport. But that's just sort of how the sport works sometimes. I mean, Bilal Muhammad was a champion. What? What'd you say about Bilal? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Now let's move in to the actual fight that everyone cares about on this card. It is the pound for pound GOAT Islam Makhachev taking on Ian Garry, the number one contender in the welterweight division. This is a fight that interests me greatly. And if you are a avid watcher of this channel, you know that I actually made a video when this fight was announced saying I was worried for Islam Makhachev and I think Ian Garry is going to win this fight. And that stands true. Dude, you could say all you want. You could say I'm fucking delusional, but I don't know what it is. Something about this fight screams upset to me. And I'm going to go into this a little bit more technically, okay? Because Ian Garry, I think, has all of the tools that he can put together to beat Islam Makhachev. Let's go over what Islam struggles with throughout his fights. He struggles with people who are very good at managing distance. Think about Alexander Volkanovski. Alexander Volkanovski is, I think, the best point fighter in UFC history. I think that's how good he is. And Ian Garry is, while he's not on that level because he's a welterweight and Volk is a featherweight, so there's just a skill gap there. I do think Ian has all the skills to present those problems in the welterweight division. He'll utilize his length very, very well. I think he'll fight behind kicks as well. His calf kicks are really good. I think that's one of his most appreciated weapons. I think his calf kick is going to be a real problem for Islam. And I also think that oblique kick, well, I do think it's a little bit like fucking overblown, like he destroyed Shavkat with those like oblique kicks. Shavkat had injury problems before the Garry fight. It's not like he went out there and tore apart this fucking cyborg with this one unbeatable kick. That's not really what happened. I just think that Garry's kicks are going to pose a severe problem. And the other problem that Islam Makhachev has is when he gets into a boxing match, he does get hit. He does get hit quite a bit. I mean, his defense is good, but if it gets dirty, if it gets scrappy, he can lose exchanges pretty consistently. He did it against Volk. He did it against us. And there were like full 2-minute sequences where it's like they're getting the better of Islam right now. Islam needs to shoot a takedown to get this round or he's going to lose. And I think if you go back and rewatch Ian Garry versus Shavkat versus Prates versus Bilal Muhammad, when he rushes in and throws those combinations in the boxing, they are super, super accurate. I think that's the best part of Ian Garry's game is his boxing. I truly think it is so elite. I think it's super high level. When he darts in and he puts on a 4-piece combination, and then I think he can add on a head kick onto the end of those combos, I think those are going to be a really just gap, like a severe gap in the striking in that realm. I just think defensively Makhachev is great, but if you give Ian Garry enough opportunities, he's going to keep hitting you. He did it to Prates, who I think is a better striker than Makhachev. I don't think anyone disagrees with that. And also, he did it to Shavkat Rakhmonov, who I think is a better striker than Makhachev. I do think Makhachev is a great striker, but I don't think he's on the level of those two. But now let's get into the real realm where everyone is actually worried about this fight. It is the grappling. And I know you're probably thinking to yourself, how do you not think Makhachev is going to run through Garry on the ground? Simply, man, it's just a feel thing. It's just a feel thing. We haven't seen Garry on his back much in the UFC. And when we have, he's gotten back to his feet pretty effectively. He doesn't really sit in guard often. He's a very active participant on the ground. And that could pose problems. If he tries to wrestle up on Islam, he's going to get Darce choked. Like, if he's stupid in this fight and he wrestles up and he isn't defensively sound like JDM was, he's going to get choked out, like, no question about it. But if he utilizes the game plan that Jack Della Maddalena presented to not get choked out, and then uses his longer, taller frame to maybe get into butterfly guard, to frame off, get it against the fence, wall walk, a back to his feet, frame off with his big long arms, throw an elbow in the clinch, break off and get back into space. I seriously think Garry is going to do this. Again, we can come back to this prediction in a week and say, what the fuck was he thinking? Islam ran through him. But we could also come back to this in a week and say, this was a prophetic prediction. And I really think it's going to happen. I have Ian Garry by a decision. I don't think he's going to KO Islam. I don't think he's going to submit Islam. I think this is going to be a very technical, a very maybe not the most entertaining fight of all time, maybe more akin to a Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez 2, where it's like, yes, Volk is winning. Yes, it's not the most entertaining, but he's outclassing this guy on the feet, and I really, really think that's what's going to happen. I just can't shake it, man. I think Ian Garry is going to become the welterweight champion of the world, and then maybe we see the rematch with Prates, and then maybe, just maybe, we can see Islam Makhachev take on Ilia Topuria in the biggest fight in the sport's history. Maybe that's why I'm picking Garry. Maybe it's just wishful thinking. But those are my picks for UFC 330. If you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. I have one more video coming out this week before the reaction video to UFC 330, so stay on the lookout for that. It's a very entertaining video. I think you'll be pretty tickled by it. But like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time.